Check, check, check. Good morning, third grade. Welcome to your first asynchronous art class lesson with Mr. Bremer. Here we are. Kind of feels a little strange for you to be watching me on a video and me to be talking to you through a recording. But this is how we're going to do things from now on. So every other week, you're going to press play instead of meeting me in a live Zoom. And I'm going to be here trying to teach class sort of like normal. Okay, so every time that you come to class and press play, hopefully you're going to have your art supplies ready, and we're going to be doing some art and some learning together. Okay, so that's the plan, is to stay as close to sort of normal art as we normally would. Okay, and I'm not going to edit this video. I'm not going to go back and add any effects or anything like that. I'm just going to do 30 minutes of me working with you guys, and you working with me. Only thing that's a little bit different is I'm not actually here. I'm recording this right now on a Monday, for you to be playing on a Wednesday. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in art class right now. You should have that chair done, okay? I want you to bring your Van Gogh chair that's finished. I want you to bring that to art class next week. Sorry, let me change that. Art class in 2 weeks, because art class next week, we won't have it because it's Thanksgiving. So you're going to be stuffing yourself full of turkey next week, instead of coming to art, which, you know what, that's okay by me. So bring your Van Gogh chair to art next week so I can take a look at it, see how you did, and make sure you get credit for that drawing on your report card. We're going to get started with something new. We're going to learn about another artist today. And this is one of my favorite artists to teach. Kind of has a special place in my heart, because she grew up very close to the spot where I grew up. And that artist's name is Georgia O'Keeffe. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I'm going to pull up her photo. You can go ahead and look up her Wikipedia article yourself. That's how you spell her name. If you need to write that down, you can pause it. Everybody, for fun, why don't you repeat after me? Say this out loud. Say Georgia O'Keeffe. Now you can tell also that George O'Keeffe was born a long time ago, in the year 1887. Okay, so over 130 years ago, and she died in 1986. So she was alive not too long ago. Most of your parents were probably born around this time, and so your parents may have lived at the same time as George O'Keeffe. Definitely your grandparents. George O'Keeffe is and was probably one of the most important and influential female American artists of all time. Okay, so if you ask people, hey, who are the best female artists of all time, Georgia O'Keeffe is going to be right up there at the top. Now, honestly, if you look at just the best American artists of all time, Georgia O'Keeffe, right there up there with the guys too. Okay, so she is considered a super important and influential artist. So that's kind of why we're learning about her. Now, I wanted to show you, kind of give you an idea of where she was from. So let's take a look at our world. All right, so here we are. This is the United States of America, okay? And just to give you a sense of where you would normally go to school, I'm going to go ahead and type in Harriet Gifford Elementary School. Let's search for Harriet Gifford Elementary School. We're going to zoom on in and see right where we're at, okay? So you saw that big city to the east of us. That is Chicago, of course. Normally, if we were actually in school right now, we would be right underneath this room. That is the kindergarten room, and that's where the art room normally is. So that's where we normally would go. You can see here's the playground. So that's us. That's at Harriet Gifford Elementary School. Now, obviously, you guys right now are somewhere in here at your houses, or right over here in your house or apartment over here. So this is where a lot of the Gifford students live. All right. Now, like I said, the city to our east is Chicago. So some of you may have jumped on a train in Elgin and taken the train downtown, or you may have driven down there. And of course, Lake Michigan. Now, if we're going to go north, we're in the state of Illinois, okay? We're in the state of Illinois. If we're going to go north, we're going to go to the great state of Wisconsin. which you can see this little pin here, the birthplace of Georgia O'Keeffe. Another super important spot, the birthplace of Mr. Bremer. Okay, so I was born in Wisconsin. You'll see me sometimes. I got a Wisconsin sweatshirt on because I also went to the University of Wisconsin for college. So let's take a look at this. So she was born in a place called Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. I was born in Madison, Wisconsin. So I grew up right around here, right by this airport here. Okay, so that's where Mr. Bremer's from. But this is just really pretty close to that. So if I had got in my car and drove 10, 15 minutes or so, I could drive right by the birthplace of George O'Keeffe. Now, when I was growing up, I didn't even know this was here. It wasn't until I learned about it later on as an adult that I kind of figured out where it is. Whoops, I kind of screwed up my zoom there. A little funny looking. We're going to exit ground level view, and then I'm going to put a little guy down in here so we can see this street view here. Okay, so this is where George O'Keeffe grew up, all right? And let's do one click this way, and if we turn the camera, we can see this little sign right here. And zooming in on that, oh, I'm not getting my zoom working correctly. But this sign right here literally says birthplace of George O'Keeffe. Now, this is not George O'Keeffe's house. This is a new farm that was built there. Her house actually burned down in 1976, okay? But if she grew up here, what do you think her family did for a living? What do you think they did? Yeah, if you said they were farmers, you're correct. Not a whole lot has changed in this area of Wisconsin. It's filled with farmland, and when George O'Keeffe was born, she kind of lived out in the countryside, all right? And we can take a quick look at her childhood house. I pulled that up right, nope, that's a spoiler alert on what we're gonna see. That's her childhood house right there. And this is what burned down in 1976. Now, when George O'Keeffe grew up, she wanted to be an artist, and that was different at the time. Do you have any guess why that was kind of strange or different? She decided to go to college, and that was a little bit different as well. And I'm going to just pause this recording for a second. And I'm back. Sorry about that. I used my camera on my phone for the other part of the Zoom lesson. And well, I'll tell you, when somebody calls, it messes things up. So that's why I had to pause the recording briefly. Okay, so going back to George O'Keeffe. She decided when she grew up, she wanted to go to school. Now, this is a little bit strange. I wouldn't say strange, but just different at the time. And the reason why it's different is girls didn't go to college very often, okay? This is a long, long time ago. So you might think, what do you mean girls didn't go to college, Mr. Bremer? Most women at the time did not grow up to have normal jobs. A lot of women were just the mom in the household. And then the man went off to work. Now, of course, that's crazy. Anybody can go in to college and get whatever job they want. So you know where she went? She actually went to school at the Art Institute in Chicago, which there's still a school there, and it's also now a museum. So some of you have actually been there. I know some of our students have been to the Art Institute. After Chicago, she moved way out east to New York City, okay? Now, if you can imagine growing up in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, in this little tiny farm area where there weren't very many people, and then going to a place like New York City. Now, of course, not all of these buildings were there, but quite a few were. New York was still the largest city in America at the time. So this is where she kind of started her art career, and she met her husband there. And then later on in her life, and this is where the paintings that I want to show you, she moved out to another place, and she moved out west. So she went from this part of the country all the way over to here. okay, to New Mexico. New Mexico is a state in the United States. Even though it has the word Mexico in it, it is not Mexico. Mexico is this country down here, okay? So let's see the difference. Here's Mexico, and here is New Mexico, okay? New Mexico is part of the United States, all right? And so she moved out to a place called Ghost Ranch. Let's zoom down into Ghost Ranch. And you can see all around is pretty much desert. Let's kind of look at what a street view looks like here. It's desert, but beautiful. Like off in the distance, you've got these red striped cliffs and hills and buttes, as they're called. You've got probably these nice sort of long areas to walk. So just a lot of really nice views from what she could see. Now, if you see this little guy right here off in the distance, we're going to actually see this. I think this is in one of her paintings, the same hill that we see here off in the distance, okay? So you could just kind of imagine that when she moved out here, what a nice place to kind of walk around and enjoy the sort of desert heat and gorgeous and beautiful views. So let's take a look at a couple of her paintings, all right? So painting number one I want to show you. Now before I show you all this stuff, she did a lot of different styles of paintings. So when I'm showing you these paintings, this is just one type of the paintings she did. And there's some of my favorites. Let's take a look. Here we go. Let's go full screen. So this right here, do you see this? So that's exactly the hill I was just talking about that she probably saw in the distance. And so what she liked to paint was different deer and cow skulls. And so think about this, she's probably walking along, finds these cow skulls, deer skulls off in the desert, brings them back, puts a nail in a tree, hangs it up, and just starts painting. Sounds like kind of a nice morning to me. Let's look at another one, different style. And sometimes she didn't just paint them like actually hanging up. Sometimes she kind of painted them like this, where they were sort of floating in the sky, okay? So this is more of an antelope skull maybe, and floating in the sky. And another thing that she liked to paint a lot of was flowers. So many of these include flowers. So you've got these sort of beautiful landscapes in the background, these sort of wide views of nature. You've got these interesting looking skulls and painted in front of, a big sky, all right? So that's your job today. You're going to do a practice drawing of a skull, all right? Practice drawing of a skull. And you might say to yourself, Mr. Brummer, I don't know how to draw a skull. And that's okay. That's okay. But let's take a look at, I put some resources on my Canvas page for you to look at so you can draw, okay? So let's take a look at this. If you go to the 3rd grade Canvas page, let's look at what it looks like from your point of view. And now, by the way, when you go in, it's going to look a little bit different because I'm going to have changed this stuff once my video is placed in here. You're going to click modules, okay? Remember with the Van Gogh chair, this is where I put some of the stuff. So modules. And you know what? I got to change some stuff real quick. As I'm recording my video, I realized I didn't publish my my Van Gogh or my George O'Keeffe stuff yet. So hang on just one second. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. I didn't click publish on the thing when I put it into Canvas. So when you go there into modules, this is what you're going to see, George O'Keeffe skulls. And you can open up this page. And I put a slideshow presentation in there of a bunch of different skulls. So you can either just look at it on this page like this and just click through and see these different skulls. Or what I think is probably even better is go ahead and make it larger, make it full screen and blow it up so that you can see it. And you're just going to pull one of these up on your computer and you're going to try to draw it, okay? Now, trying to draw this is where the challenge is, all right? How do you draw something that looks realistic like one of these skulls? Well, first off, don't try to draw it by drawing the outline of it. So don't come in and say, oh, I got to draw this perfect looking skull. Instead, what I want you to do is break it down into shapes. All right. So let's take this guy. I'm going to draw this guy right now. Okay. And I'm going to show you from my camera what it looks like on my page when I draw this. But before we do that, let's just break it down into shapes. All right. So let's do this. So if we look at here, that's pretty much straight across, right? Now there's some curves here, right? We can see that, but let's make it simpler. The bottom part is pretty much a triangle, right? So triangle shape with this little, it's a trapezoid shape, okay? So those two shapes together, that's pretty much the main shape of the skull. Now, after you've drawn that, then you can kind of say, oh, well, actually, there's a little line in there, and it actually kind of comes in here and here, here and here. There's the eye holes here and here. But look at this. These are all just triangles. So these are simple shapes too. So all of this is things that you can do, okay? Just to show you on the other side, this guy, same thing. Look, main shape at the bottom is a triangle, okay? Shape at the top, trapezoid, okay? Each one of these skulls pretty much has that main shape. And then you just have to kind of go in and change some of those lines, adding in the other shapes that you can see, okay? So let's see what that looks like on my paper, all right? All right, so here we are. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in, and give me a second so I can pull back up that skull on my screen. And I think it's gonna be best if you practice drawing this way, okay? Now you may, the way you do your skull, you may end up drawing it this way, and you don't even have to choose the skulls that I put up on my screen, okay? You could instead find a different picture of a skull. Go looking around on the internet for another picture of a skull with your parents' permission. But we're gonna still do sort of these cow skulls. That's what I want you to find, cow or deer skull, okay? So that's the main shape I talked about, right? We just saw that on the video or on when I was sharing my screen, and that's sort of the bottom of it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just making sure I'm still recording here. Look at that. So the eye goes in there. Then there's gonna be this little recess in here. It kind of comes in, this shape here. I see similar stuff over here, but not quite the same. Then at the bottom, it's gonna kind of come up like that. All right, so I'm taking my main shape and I've sort of turned it into a cow skull, like so. Now, again, today, this is just practice. You're gonna do another one of these. So if you mess up, don't worry about it. But you can see how I took my main shape and turned it much more into the shape that I can see on my screen. And then the horns are going to come out like this. Okay. Now, then, because I've kind of drawn over a lot of these things, I kind of erase some of my lines to kind of fix that up. And there we go. Okay. So I think we're looking pretty good. Let's kind of compare. Okay. So that's what I just drew. And this is what I was looking at. I was looking at this guy right here. Okay. And that is what I drew. Okay. Now, this is the time where I want you to make your drawing. So pull out your piece of paper. You can go to my Canvas page. You can look at those skulls and you're going to start your own skull drawing, okay? And I want you to spend about 10 minutes on that, all right? So we're going to go ahead and put a timer on the screen and get you started with that. Give me a second here and pull up my timer. Oh, I already started, but I'm not sharing it. Here we go. Why don't you spend 10 minutes on this part of your drawing, okay? So go ahead and everybody pull up your drawing and start working on it right now. I'm gonna go ahead and keep working on mine for a little bit while you guys work on yours. All right, so if you're thinking about where you should be on your project, 2-3 minutes into your drawing, you should have sort of your main shapes done. If you need to pause the video so that you can pull up the actual pictures of the skulls, you can do that too. If you're feeling like you're already a little bit behind, you can do that. Now on my drawing, I'm actually adding in a little bit of shading right now, which you don't have to worry about at all. We are going to talk about that next week when we're live together again. It's an element of art that we're going to learn about called value. And value is all about the lightness and darkness of a color. And then when it's black and white, its value refers more to sort of just general shading, adding light and shadows to kind of create three-dimensional looks and just sort of differences in the entire look of your drawing. And I'm going to teach more about that next week. Now, thinking about your timing, you should have the main shapes of your skull already kind of drawn out. You should start thinking about the details of like where different things go. What parts of the shape do you need to change on your skull? If you have finished it, if you really cranked it out fast, look for any details that you might be missing. Do you need to change anything? Do you need to erase parts of it at all? What else could you do to make it look good? Could you draw the same thing again? Okay, so go ahead and spend 2 more minutes on that, just kind of trying to finish up your skull. Okay, and as you kind of work for your last 45 seconds, you can take a look at what I did. I'm going to, let's see, do that, make it a little larger. You can tell the shading I put in to darken up some areas. I actually had a little trouble with it because when I was showing the timer, I couldn't look at the skull at the same time. So I just kind of guessed, but I've drawn these skulls a bunch of times, so it wasn't too bad for me. But here's what I want you to do. So go ahead and put this away, and everybody bring this skull, bring this drawing to class. So next week, what you got to bring, sorry, not next week, week after Thanksgiving, you need to bring your skull drawing and your Van Gogh chair, okay? Your Van Gogh chair as well. So we will see you guys then. Until then, have a wonderful week. Work hard, and I will see you guys when I see you next time.